Have you ever struggled to pick the right colors for your shoot? Maybe you're not sure which gel to use in your lights, or which backdrop will make your subject pop, or how to mix colors in the scene when it comes to styling and lighting and props without making things look really chaotic. The key to solving this problem is color harmony. And understanding how colors work together will completely change the way you approach photography, whether you're using gels or you're just using regular daylight. Today I'm going to break it all down for you and show you exactly how to use color harmony with intention so you never have to guess again. Welcome back everyone. In today's video, I'm going to take you step by step through color harmony, how it works, the different types, and why it's critical for your photography. I'll show you examples of color harmony in action using gels, but remember, this applies to everything: wardrobe, backgrounds, props, and even skin tones. Then we'll look at the science of mixing colored light so you can predict how colors will blend when using gels or colored LEDs. By the end of this video, you'll have a solid understanding of how to use color harmony to create more impactful images. So let's get started. Many of you have probably seen a color wheel before. I use two different physical ones that I purchased on Amazon, and I also will use one on a website called sessions.edu. Just search for Color Harmony Calculator if you want to check that out online. Color wheels will help you determine color harmony. Now there are 6 different types of color harmony, and basically it's just drawing a shape or a line or a couple of lines on the color wheel. So let's start off with complementary color harmony. This is just when you have two colors opposite of each other on the color wheel. It doesn't have to be these exact two, it could be any of them, but just know opposite colors equals complementary color harmony. And when you use two colors and they're opposite of each other, they normally look good in the scene. Now, monochromatic, on the other hand, is when you use one color or shades of that color throughout your scene, and that really can be a cool way to approach things. Analogous color harmony is just when you choose neighboring colors on the color wheel and put them in the same shot. On the other hand, split complementary is just when you draw a skinny triangle on the color wheel. Basically, you have a base color and then two near opposites, and they create a little triangle, and that usually looks good. Triadic color harmony, on the other hand, is when you make an equilateral triangle, give or take, on the color wheel, and you have these colors spaced out like in this relationship. Tetradic color harmony, on the other hand, is when you use 4 different colors to form a square or a rectangle on the color wheel. You may have seen this worded before as 2 complementary color pairs. And just to reiterate one more time, I'm not talking about using colored light or gels. Specifically, your color harmony can come from your styling choices, or your background, or your props, or the model's skin tone, or colored light. It could be anything. So, now you've probably heard this phrase before if you go all the way back to elementary school, and that is yellow and blue equals green. Well, that is true if we're talking about paint. If we're blending paint together, then yellow and blue do equal green. But what if we're blending together light? So in a test that I did recently, I took 2 different monolights with grid reflectors in 30-degree grids, and I put a yellow gel on one and a blue gel on the other. These are from Rosco. They're their Cal Color gels. They're supposed to be pure blue and pure yellow, and I shined them on to a gray background, and I had them slightly overlap. And then I started turning them in more towards each other. And as you can see, the color where they overlap is not green, it's actually neutral. If I overlap them completely, the result is sort of a bluish white sphere. Now, why is that? That's because there is a color wheel for stuff, red, yellow, blue. That's when you're mixing paint. And there is actually a color wheel for light, which is red, green, and blue. So when we have opposite colors on the RGB wheel, they tend to cancel each other out. So if we look here at blue and yellow, where they would overlap, we would kind of get a neutral color. If we had green and magenta gels, they would also basically cancel each other out. And if we had red and cyan gels, they would cancel each other out too. I actually continued this test using cyan, magenta, yellow, red, green, and blue gels, and I selected 2 of them and overlapped them. And it turns out there are 15 potential combinations of those 6 gels, and I've got them here for you on screen. One thing that will jump out right away is you can see here on the top left that red and green actually equals yellow. On the other side of the screen, in the middle row, you'll see that magenta and yellow actually equals red. These are things that we were never taught in elementary school, but let's look into this a little bit closer. What if we were using red, green, and blue gels? These are the primary colors on the RGB additive color wheel. Well, if we use those and combine those, we would get red and green, that would equal yellow. We would get green and blue, that would equal cyan. And if we took blue and red, that would equal magenta. So effectively, by using red, green, and blue, we're getting cyan, magenta, and yellow light. The same thing would be true if we use cyan, magenta, and yellow gels. The resulting color combinations would equal red, green, and blue light. You'll see all of this in action as we work through the lighting setups in today's video. But there are some things to consider. The gels that I'm using are Rosco's Color Cal gels. They're supposed to be pure and true to color, but I'm not sure if they are. If you're not using these particular gels, you might be using red-ish gels and blue-ish gels, and the result might not be pure magenta if you overlap those two, just for example. The other thing to consider is that lights have different white balances at different power outputs. This is true of every brand of light, as far as I'm aware, at different power settings. So minimum power could be 500 degrees cooler than maximum power. And so if you've got one gel that's blue at a different power setting and red at a different power setting, the resulting color may not be exactly magenta in this example. If you have 2 colors that are supposed to cancel each other out, like yellow and blue, you could take a photo with those 2 lights overlapping and then use a gray card and set a custom white balance to neutralize that color so that you will get the exact neutral tone that you're looking for. Later on in this video, we'll actually be overlapping 3 gels in a scenario where we should get neutral light where they all overlap. Now, if you're thinking this all seems rather complicated, let's just look at this RGB color wheel one more time. If we take a gel that looks magenta and we take a gel that looks yellow, the resulting color is going to be the color in between, which is going to be red, give or take. You know, there is a science to this, but it's really art. So let's not get hung up if our magenta appearing gel and our cyan appearing gel don't make true blue, they just make a color that's perceived as blue. That's all that matters. So all you have to do is look at an RGB color wheel and think about the 2 gels you're using. If they're opposite of each other, they're going to cancel each other out, more or less. And if they aren't opposite of each other, the resulting color is going to be whatever color is in between the 2 colors that you're using. It's not complicated. It's really quite simple, but let's put all of this color theory to use. For this look with Sophia, I'm going to use 2 Pavo tubes over each shoulder, and I'm going to tune them in to being magenta. If you don't have Pavo tubes, you could very easily just use 2 soft boxes with gels inside. When you gel a softbox, you want to make sure that the entire flash tube is covered with the gel, or the area where the flash tube is covered with the gel. You don't actually want your gel to touch the flash tube or else it will melt, but just know that you need to make it so that when the light comes out of the flash tube, that all of it passes through the gel before it goes into the softbox or spreads around the softbox. The reason being is that if you have unfiltered light inside of your softbox and filtered light, that unfiltered light is going to wash out the saturation of your filtered light. So just make sure that you use ample amounts of tape and get what I like to refer to as a seal. So you could use 2 softboxes back there, or you could use the Pavo tubes. The choice is really up to you depending on the gear that you have and the gear that you want to use for this shot. I also lit her from the front with a Nanlite Forza 60C with an optical snoot, which they call their projection mount attachment. I used the blades inside in order to create just a slit of light, which I projected onto Sophia's face. In order to create a gradient on the purple background, I placed a magenta gel on a 21 centimeter or 8.3 inch reflector and paired it with an Elinchrom FIVE. Her blue top and the magenta light are analogous colors. However, if we combine the blue top and the magenta light and her skin tone, we actually get split complementary color harmony. So that's why this image feels really good and cohesive. In this second example, I overlapped red, green, and blue light, and the result were cyan, magenta, and yellow shadows. Now this is really cool. If there's an area where the person blocks the background from seeing the green light, then the red and blue lights overlap, and in that area we get magenta. If there's an area where the red light is blocked from hitting the background, then we end up with the blue and green light overlapping, and there we get cyan. And if there's an area where the background cannot see the blue light, then the red and green gels combine in order to make yellow. So we use the 3 primary colors of red, green, and blue, and we ended up with the secondary colors of cyan, magenta, and yellow. And I love the way that it looks in this frame. You could also take it the other way, and you could use cyan, magenta, and yellow gels and end up with RGB shadows. Now, in order to have this work, your background needs to be a neutral color, either white or gray, with gray probably being my preference overall, but white will work just fine. When you have all 3 lights overlap though, the resulting color is going to be neutral. Now, there are a few things that you have to do in order to make this work. The first thing is that you need to make sure that the brightness of each light after it passes through the gel and hits the subject is the same brightness. The easiest way to do this is by using a light meter and metering it so that each light, when fired with each gel, gives you the exact same meter reading. The other way that you could do this is to tether your camera to your computer, photograph each light independently, and use the eyedropper to make sure that your backdrop is the same brightness with each light. And you would have to adjust each light to make sure that it was in fact the same brightness. The other thing that you need to do though is to set a custom white balance. So in the area where all 3 gels overlap, you want to photograph a gray card or a piece of paper and just take a picture with that object and then set a custom white balance in the software that you're using. And that will neutralize any differences that you might have between one light being slightly warmer than the other, or one gel being not exactly true to color. You might also choose to go into the color editor in your post-production software and change the saturation or lightness of cyan, magenta, or yellow, or the exact color that you're seeing there so that you get the aesthetic result that you're looking for. But this is a really cool, fun trick that you can use to make some really interesting pictures. You also could use an optical snoot on one of the lights and have it project a shape, and then that will create a whole other layer of coolness that you can create in the studio. The next look that I want to talk about is how to create a rainbow in the studio. Back when I was testing out the R5 Mark I, I ended up creating this look with Marty, where I placed a magenta light behind him, a blue light over here in the back on camera left, a green light in the front, and then a red light over on camera right, and then a yellow hair light. Where the colors overlapped, I got the expected color, and where the colors didn't overlap, I could see that individual color. Over time, I actually evolved this setup into sort of a go-to, where I would put a red gel over each shoulder, which you can see here with Terrence. Then I would put a blue gel and a green gel in the front. And then I used yellow for my hair light in order to make things pop. You can see an image with each of these lights independently working. And then where blue and green would overlap, I would get cyan. Where red and blue would overlap, I would get magenta. And where red and green would overlap, I would get a yellow tone. And I've used this technique multiple times with multiple models in order to show off this technique. And it's really cool because you're blending together red, green, and blue gels in order to get the full spectrum of the rainbow right there on your subject. Now you might be wondering, who is this lighting for? What client are you going to use this for? Well, you could use it if you're a senior photographer. I'm sure that would look great. You could maybe use it if you're a model portfolio photographer. But the thing that I love most about experimenting with gels like this is that you're using them in order to make some cool creative images that you might share one day and might result in a client who wants that particular look. But more importantly, you could just be doing it in order to learn from the process, and that could give you a tool and a skill to use later when some challenge presents itself and you need to draw back somewhere in your history and come up with a solution. And that's what I love most about lighting, is that we're always experimenting and trying different things, and you never know when you're going to learn something new and when you need to use that skill in the future. If you want to take your learning to the next level, I actually have a lighting handbook that's all about using colored light. And I have over 20 different setups broken down in that handbook with all the information that you need to recreate those looks, including behind the scenes photos, diagrams, and more. So to check that out, just go to johngress.com/lighting handbooks. But there is one more thing that I want to drive home, and that is that color harmony isn't just something that comes up when you're using colored LEDs or gels. Color harmony is something that you're going to use in your work all of the time. And so you want to make sure that all of the elements in your shot work well together, whether that's the outfit or the background or the gel or the skin tone or the props. You want to make sure everything plays a role together, it looks cohesive, and that you're using color harmony to make sure that things are nice and balanced. Sure, you can break the rules. Sometimes having an image that doesn't comply with color harmony is going to work. But just know that color harmony is more likely than not the solution to having a good looking image and a nice final result. If you have any questions or comments, please leave those below. Also, I'll link to all the gear that I'm using in the description. And if you click on those links and buy something from those retailers, that will help support me to make more videos like this one. Also, please like, subscribe, sign up for the bell, and share this video with your friends. I hope that you have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you soon.